This person has been carrying something they need to tell you, and it has been inside them for so long that it is no longer a feeling. It is a fracture. It is breaking them, not slowly, not gently, right now. Something you sensed behind their silence was real. That weight you felt in their words when they spoke to you about anything except the one thing that mattered. That pause, you noticed that shift in their breathing. You could not explain that moment where their eyes held yours half a second longer than normal and then looked away as if they had been caught. All of it was real. All of it was the sound of something trapped inside them pressing against the walls of their chest. You did not invent that. You did not create it out of loneliness or hope or wishful thinking. What you sensed was a confession building inside this person, a confession that has been growing heavier every single day, and it is closer to the surface now than it has ever been. Let your body settle into this moment. What are about to hear has been traveling through silence and divine timing to reach you right here, right now. Your soul called this in, and now it is here. Welcome to Soul Signal. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you never miss when the universe has something to share with you. There is something happening inside this person that they cannot stop. Something that started quietly, so quietly, they thought they could control it. They thought they could keep it in a small space inside their world and manage it the way a person manages a secret, by pressing it into a corner, by looking away from it, by filling every hour with noise so the silence never gets quiet enough for the truth to get loud. But this is not an ordinary secret. This is something the universe placed between you and this person, long before either of you understood what it was, a truth that was written into the space between your souls before your lives ever crossed. They did not choose to carry this. It was given to them, the way a river is given its direction before the water ever arrives, and the truth got loud anyway. It did not wait for permission. It started pushing from the inside the way water pushes against a dam that was never built to hold this much of pressure. They could dismiss as stress or tiredness or something that would pass. It did not pass, it grew. And now the thing they need to tell you has taken up so much space inside them that there is barely room left for anything else. It presses against their throat when they try to speak. It fills their hands with a restlessness they cannot explain to anyone. What they need to tell you is pressing against everything. They are something cracked inside them recently, not in the way you break a bone, in the way ice cracks before a river starts moving. Again, a sound that nobody hears but the ice itself, a fracture, so deep that the surface still looks solid, but underneath everything is shifting, everything is loosening, everything is preparing to move. The move. Spiritual world calls this a truth fracture. It is what happens when a soul places a confession inside a body, and the body holds it for so long that it begins to crack under the weight of something sacred, not the mind, the body, because the mind can lie, the mind can build stories and excuses and reasons to stay silent, but the body serves the soul, and the soul has been pressing this truth against the walls of their body from the inside, asking to be released, asking to be spoken, asking to reach the one person it was always meant for. Their truth fracture started before they knew what it was. It started as a tightness in their jaw when your name came up, a heat in their chest that arrived without warning, a heaviness behind their eyes that felt like tears that could not find their way out, not because the tears were not ready, because the confession they belonged to was still locked behind a door that their pride refused to open. But the fracture is spreading, and the door is starting to give. If you have always felt they were holding something back from you, type "I always knew" in the comments. Let the universe know that your heart was listening even when their mouth was not. The confession is closer to the surface than it has ever been, and the closer it gets, the harder it becomes for them to keep everything looking normal on the outside. They are sitting in rooms full of people and feeling completely alone, not because no one is there, because the only person they want to speak to is you, and the only thing they want to say is the one thing they cannot. Every other conversation feels like noise wrapped around a silence that has your name inside it. They smile when they are supposed to smile, they nod when they are supposed to nod, but behind every expression there is a pressure building that makes their face feel like a mask. They forgot how to take off. They started sentences that almost touched the edge of the confession, but pulled back at the last breath. They circled it the way a person circles a fire. They are afraid to touch, but cannot stop moving toward, and you may have noticed, you may have felt the air change in those moments. You may have sensed that what they were saying carried more weight than the words themselves could hold. You may have looked at them and seen something flicker behind their eyes that disappeared before you could name it. You were not imagining that that was the confession reaching for you through the only cracks it could find, through half-finished sentences, through looks that lasted too long, through the specific way their voice dropped when they said something that mattered more than they were letting on. The truth inside them has its own heartbeat. Now it is no longer something they carry. It is something that lives inside them, something that breathes, something that wakes when they wake, and does not sleep when they sleep, something that has grown so large inside their chest that their ribs ache with the holding of it. Wise soul once understood that what remains unconscious will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Their confession has been directing everything between you from underneath, every silence, every distance, almost every moment that felt charged with something neither of you could name that was not fate, that was truth pressing against the floor of their awareness, trying to rise, trying to break through, trying to reach the only person it was ever meant for you. Bring one hand to your throat right now, not pressing, just resting. Feel the pulse there. That is the same place where their confession is trapped between the heartbeat and the voice, between what they feel and what they cannot say. Your throat knows this place. It has held things too on the outside. Nothing looks wrong, but inside them, there is a war that no one can see. They rehearse the confession not once, not occasionally, every day in the shower, where the water covers every sound in the car, where the windows are up and the road does not judge, in bed at night, when the only audience is the ceiling. They say the words, they shape the sentences, they practice the sound of their own truth, leaving their body, and every time they do it, something opens inside them, a warmth floods their chest, a relief, so deep it almost brings them to their knees, and then the moment ends, and they swallow it back down, and the swallowing is worse every time, like trying to put something back inside a container that has already been outgrown. The universe applies a force to truth that cannot be stopped, the same way the earth applies pressure to a seed until the seed has no choice but to open the same way. Gravity pulls water downhill. No matter how many walls you build across the path, there is a sacred pressure that the divine places on every truth that was meant to be spoken, and the longer that truth stays buried, the greater the pressure becomes. Their sacred pressure has been building for longer than either of you knows, and it is reaching the point where holding it in costs more than letting it out. Type the one word you have been waiting to hear from this person. Just one word. The universe will carry it, and now hear what their heart has been saying in the place where no one can hear, because they have been speaking to you, not out loud, not in messages, in the only space where the truth does not have to defend itself. I have been carrying something for you, something that has been sitting in my chest so long it has changed the shape of my breathing. I have tried to say it more times than you know. I have opened my mouth in rooms where you were not even there, and practiced the sound of it, the weight of it on my tongue, the way the air changes the moment it leaves, but every time I get close something stops me, not because I do not mean it, because I mean it so much that saying it wrong feels worse than not saying it at all. I am not afraid of the words. I'm afraid of what happens after the words. I'm afraid of your eyes. I'm afraid of the silence that follows, something that cannot be taken back. I'm afraid that the moment I say it, everything between us changes, and I lose the version of us that at least still exists, even if it is not the version I want. But I cannot carry this anymore. It is breaking me, not slowly, not gently. It is breaking me the way water breaks stone, one day at a time, until the shape of who I am has changed around the thing. I cannot say my soul knew your name before my mind learned it, and the thing I cannot say is the truest thing I have ever known. That is what lives inside them. Right now, those words, or something shaped exactly like them, pressing against everything, leaking through every crack, growing louder in every silence. Maybe they are the person who always holds your gaze a second longer than they should. Maybe they are the one whose voice drops half a note when they say your name. Maybe they are the one who asks you questions that have nothing to do with what they really want to know. Maybe they started a sentence last week that trailed off into nothing, and you saw something flash across their face that disappeared before you could name it. Whoever they are, the confession is not waiting for permission anymore, and something has been growing in you too. My dear, something you did not plan, something the universe has been building quietly inside you while you were carrying the weight of not knowing. You stopped waiting for someone else's truth to tell you who you are. There was a time when their silence made you question everything, when the things they did not say became louder than the things they did. When you lay awake, constructing meaning from nothing, turning every pause into proof, every distance into evidence, every missing word into a judgment about your worth, that time is ending. You may not have noticed when the shift began. It did not happen with a sound. It happened the way the tide changes, not all at once, one wave at a time, until the water is standing in a completely different place. You stopped building your peace on someone else's honesty. You found a ground inside yourself that does not move when someone else goes quiet, a place that holds steady, whether they speak or stay silent. That does not mean you stopped caring. You care deeply, but you stopped letting that care burn down the house. you built for yourself. You stopped handing your stability to someone else's courage, and that shift is something the entire universe has been watching, because when a soul stops waiting for another person's mouth to speak what it already knows, the ground underneath that soul settles not into stone, into something warm and steady and unshakable, and the universe does not just watch that happen. It responds, it moves things, it clears paths that were blocked, it opens doors that were sealed, not because you asked, because your soul earned it by choosing to stand on its own ground. When every silence told you to fall, you became that ground. Not because someone taught you how, because the silence taught you. If you can feel something shifting between you and this person right now, type "the truth is coming" in the comments. Let the universe record that you felt it before it arrived. But while you have been settling into your own wholeness, the confession inside them has not been resting. It has been doing something they cannot control. What they carry has mass. Now it has gravity. Their shoulders curve inward slightly when they think of you, because the weight of what they need to say is pressing down on their whole body, not in their mind, in their body. The body holds what the mind refuses to release, and their body has been holding this for so long that it has changed the way they stand, the way they breathe. The spiritual world calls this confession. Weight. It is the physical burden of a truth that was meant to be spoken, but has been held past its time every day. The words stay inside. The weight increases not by much, just enough to feel, just enough to make their smile take more effort, just enough to make their laughter carry something underneath it that only the universe can hear. The divine measures this weight, not in pounds, but in silence. Every word held back is a prayer that was never sent. You may have caught it. You may have looked at them recently and thought something is different. Not wrong, different, heavier, as if they are carrying something invisible that is pulling them slightly toward the ground. And you were right. What you were seeing was confession weight, the visible sign of a soul that has been holding a sacred truth past the moment it was meant to be spoken. And every day they choose silence over truth. The weight presses deeper, not to punish them, to remind them that what the universe placed inside them was never meant to stay silent forever. Their body is rebelling against the holding. Their sleep is fractured. They wake at hours that make no sense, not from noise, from pressure. Their dreams have turned into rehearsal rooms where the confession plays out in versions they cannot control. Sometimes they tell you everything in those dreams, and the relief is so enormous that they wake up gasping, and then they realize it was not real, and the gasping turns into something closer to grief. They are tired, not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the kind that comes from fighting your own truth for too long, the kind that sits in the bones, the kind that is actually the body saying, "I cannot hold this any longer." Their confession is not your weight to carry, my dear. Their struggle to speak is not something you are responsible for. Their broken sleep, their heavy shoulders, their rehearsed sentences that never make it past their teeth, those belong to them, not to you. You did not cause the confession. You simply existed. You simply showed up as yourself. You simply carried a frequency that reached inside them and touched something that had been waiting to be touched. And when it was touched, it woke up, and what woke up has been demanding to be spoken ever since. That is not your burden, that is your power. Your presence alone was enough to wake a truth inside another person, that nothing else could reach. You do not owe them patience while they gather the courage to speak. You do not owe them a door that stays open forever. Your life moves at the speed of your own choices, not at the speed of someone else's confession. Whatever they are building toward is theirs. Your job is to keep building what is yours. Keep waking up, keep breathing, keep choosing yourself. If their truth finds its way to it, you will arrive at a person who was living, and that is the version of you that deserves to hear it. Type confession weight if you understand now why their silence felt so heavy. Let those words name what your body has been sensing all along. Maybe what they need to confess is something they did that they have never forgiven themselves for. Maybe it is something they did not do when they should have. Maybe it is a feeling they have been carrying that they thought would pass but only grew. Maybe it is something so simple that it scares them, because the simplest truths are always the hardest to say out loud. Whatever it is, the confession has developed its own momentum. It is no longer something they decide to carry. It is something that is carrying them toward you, toward the moment, toward the sound of their own voice, saying what their body has been screaming in silence. They've almost said it more times than you will ever know. There was a moment, maybe a week ago, maybe a month, they were near you, or thinking of you, and the words rose up from somewhere deep inside their chest and traveled all the way to the back of their throat. They could feel the shape of each word sitting there ready, formed alive. The air between their lips was the only distance left between you and the truth, and then they swallowed it, and it felt like swallowing something with edges, something that scraped on the way down. They have been living in the aftermath of those almost moments. Each one makes the next attempt more painful and more necessary at the same time, because every time they come that close and pull back, the pressure doubles, the fracture deepens, and the distance between almost and finally gets thinner. They are running out of room to hold this. What was once a feeling is now a force, and forces do not wait for human readiness. Something is about to give, not because they choose it, because the body has reached a limit that the mind cannot argue with. Place your hand flat on your stomach right now, below the ribs. Feel the warmth gathering there. That is where truth lives before it becomes words. That is where their confession has been sitting heavy, warm, alive, waiting for the moment it is finally allowed to rise. Their soul has been whispering to the universe. At hours, they do not remember, not asking for help, asking for the courage to finally say what their mouth has been holding hostage. The spiritual world calls this a breaking point prayer. It is the prayer a soul sends when the weight of an unspoken truth has grown past what the body was built to carry. Not a prayer for relief, a prayer for release, and the universe has been receiving that prayer every single night. And the universe does not let a prayer repeat this many times without answering it. The answer is already in motion, not on their schedule, not on yours, on the timing of something older than both of you, something that knows exactly the moment when the pressure will exceed the resistance, when the truth will finally outweigh the fear. Jung once said that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. What this person is about to do is not just confess to you, they are about to accept the part of themselves they have been running from, the part that needs you, the part that chose you, the part that has been screaming your name inside a locked room for longer than their pride wants to admit, and that acceptance is the hardest thing a human being can do. But they are finding it one cracked night at a time, one swallowed sentence at a time, and the universe is watching them find it. What they need to say to you is breaking them from the inside out. But the breaking is not destruction. The breaking is preparation, the way the ground breaks open before a seed becomes visible, the way dawn breaks the night, not by fighting the darkness, but by simply arriving. The breaking inside them is the breaking of every wall they built to keep the truth contained, and once those walls are down, there will be nothing left between you and what they have been carrying, nothing except air and the sound of a voice that finally chose to stop rehearsing and start speaking. Type one thing you would say back to them if they finally confessed. Let those words be ready in the universe before their voice arrives, and you, after all of this, after sensing what they could not say in every silence they gave you, after wondering if you were imagining the whole thing, and then knowing in the deepest part of yourself that you were not you, are still here, still whole, still standing on ground that no one else built for you. You did not let their silence define you. You did not fold yourself into the shape of their fear and wait for them to unfold you. You kept your own shape, you kept your own truth, alive even when theirs was trapped. You trusted your own knowing, and that knowing kept you breathing when everything else said, hold your breath and wait. The years you spent being patient with their silence did not weaken you. They clarified you the way fire clarifies gold, not by adding anything, by burning away everything that was not essential. And the real thing is standing right here, breathing, whole. You do not need their confession to know your own truth. My dear, you have known it all along. Every quiet night when you sensed something unspoken between you, every moment when their eyes said what their mouth could not, you knew, you always knew, and that knowing is the strongest thing about you. No one else carries the frequency that makes their confession necessary. No one else walks into a room and makes the air inside another person's chest rearrange itself. That frequency is yours. It has always been yours. Maybe when the confession finally comes, it will not arrive as a speech. Maybe it will be 3 words at an hour that does not make sense. Maybe it will be their face changing in a room where you happen to be the mask falling before they can catch it. And in that half second you will see everything, the fracture, the weight, the prayer, the years of rehearsing, all of it written across their face in a language only you can read. Maybe it will be the sound of their breathing on the other end of a phone call where neither of you says anything for 10 seconds, but both of you feel everything. Maybe the confession has already been made in a language your soul understood before your ears ever heard it. Maybe what is coming will not arrive from them at all. Maybe the universe will bring something you did not expect, a truth from a direction you never considered, a door you did not know existed, a feeling you did not know you were allowed to have, a peace so steady that the question of whether someone else confesses stops being the loudest thing in your chest. Or maybe they will come to you trembling, imperfect, with words that come out sideways, because the truth has been trapped so long it forgot how to walk in a straight line. What comes out will not be polished or rehearsed, or beautiful, it will be raw, shaking everything they have been swallowing for months, finally refusing to stay down, and your body will know what to do before your mind catches up. You will feel the difference between a confession that comes from fear and a confession that comes from truth. A person who confesses because they are afraid of losing you is still holding on. A person who confesses because the truth inside them can no longer be held is letting go of the walls of the pride of everything that stood between what they felt and what they were willing to say. You will know which one is standing in front of you. You learned to tell the difference in the silence. You learned it without a teacher, and what you learned lives in your bones. Now, whatever happens between now and the moment that confession finds air, whether it arrives tomorrow or next month, whether it comes from them or from a direction you never expected, you do not shrink for it. You do not bend your life around the timing of someone else's courage. You meet it standing up, eyes open, heart open, feet on your own ground, because the truth is this: the confession is closer to the surface than it has ever been, but your wholeness was never waiting for it to arrive. You were whole before they started carrying it. You were whole almost through every swallowed sentence, through every night they rehearsed in the dark, and you lay awake sensing something you could not name, and the next signal that reaches you will find you exactly where you are supposed to be, not waiting, living, not frozen, moving, not holding your breath for someone else's truth, breathing your own. The confession is one ordinary moment away from breaking through, and you are already standing in the light before you leave. Type signal received. So the universe knows this message reached the right soul tonight. Let those words seal what moved between your heart and the truth. You do not need their confession to confirm your place in this world. Your place was carved by your own life, your own love, your own quiet refusal to become less than what you are. The next time a signal finds you, my dear, may you already know that the truth someone carries about you does not define your worth. Your worth was written before any confession was ever needed, and it will remain long after every truth has been spoken. You are the signal. You have always been the signal. Share this with someone who has been sensing an unspoken truth from someone they love, like this video, so the universe can carry this message to every heart that needs it. Tonight, subscribe to Soul Signal and turn on all notifications so the next signal reaches you at the moment it is meant to. The confession is almost here, and whatever it brings, whatever form it takes, whatever words it wears, you are already complete without it. That has always been true, and it always will be.